Well, today's project seems simple enough. I'm going to move the machine up. I actually want to get the head and the table off the machine in preparation for moving the main part of the machine, body of the machine, down the bulkhead. And what I want to do is, for starters, it's just at the edge of the yard area there, and it's in that wood line there, and it's just kind of mosquito ridden and everything. I've got some insect repellent on, but I'd rather just be able to have it up a little closer to the house. Cat's out of the bag anyways, because the wife's seen it. She knows there's something under there. She doesn't know what's underneath that tarp. She doesn't know what I paid for it, but she knows it exists. So not much point in trying to hide that any longer. So I figure I'm going to move it up closer to the house, so it's going to be easy for me to go get tools and stuff to work on it. So I'm going to use the Oliver and do that. But I think before I do that, I'm going to fill in this low spot right here, because every time I drive up here, I got to get really, I'm really wary about getting a wheel in there and having the tractor tilt to one side, and especially if I've got that heavy load on the front loader while I'm doing it, it's going to be problematic. So take care of that first. Well, so much for that idea. The time it took for me to just level that out and everything, the Oliver just started it. There it goes. It's taking off again. I still got this runaway problem. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if it's an injector pump problem, or is it just got so much blow by that it's actually aspirating the crankcase fluid, oil, and burning that. But right now that's at idle. And it does the same thing every time. If it's idling and I give it a lot of pedal and I drive a little bit, when I take my foot off the pedal, it comes down a little bit and then starts to race. And it's also exhibiting a lack of power. If I work the hydraulics hard, it'll stall or just have no power. That's a lot of bluish smoke coming out of there. It's been like 2 minutes now, and now it just won't come down idle at all. Now I'll double check the linkage, but it doesn't seem to be linkage related. And the problem is, because of the torque converter shuttle shift, I can't drive this thing like this. If I throw that, if I put it in gear and throw that lever right now, the thing's just going to lurch forward. And then I got to pop it into neutral, and if it goes too far back because of the shoddy linkage on that thing, it jerks backwards. It's very frustrating. My hand blocking the intake. It's not dying. I don't know if that intake hose is just leaking really bad. Son of a slow it down is by putting a load on it. There you go. What I did was I just actuated the loader past its end point, and that loads up the hydraulic pump enough, puts enough load on the motor to kill it. Now, it shouldn't even die right there, actually. It should just, there should be a bypass valve that kicks open in the hydraulic system, and you know, this thing, there's not going to be an easy way to fix this. I just know it. It's going to be one of those things. Well, if it is sucking in through the intake, which I kind of doubt at this point, the fact that I can cover that with my hand and all it's getting by is some air leaking by and it's still running like a son of a gun. I don't know, because I'm thinking, well, maybe if I reattach my hose to my air cleaner and put my cup back on my air cleaner and force it to suck air from up here, maybe then it'll stop. But I just don't know. I don't know if this is, I don't know if this is a problem with something, the little metering valve is, in the top here sticking, or is this thing just running away because the engine's so worn? Well, it's August 28th. The problem I've encountered now is one of my laptops had a hard drive crash, and I lost some video clips. And because I lost some video clips that are parts of other videos, I'm going to have a couple of videos coming up that, well, at least probably 2 or 3 videos that are going to have sections where they're going to jump and not seem to have, the continuity is going to be all screwed up, to put it plainly. So anyways, I'm interrupting in all of a video, which is the first video that I discovered that the clips are missing. So I'm going to give a little quick rundown as to what ended up happening, and then we'll pick up that video where I do have video clips. So where we stand right now is that the Oliver has had a few repairs done to it, and the most important repair that I wanted to get done was the problem where the engine was running away, and I ended up solving that issue, and you're going to see what was involved in you're going to see some of what was involved in taking care of that. But what I want to explain is that one of the things, the video, when I finish this little diatribe, the video is going to just pick up at a point where I'm servicing the primary filter canister. The reason being is that I had noticed that the filter canister was leaking fuel at that bottom valve right there, or petcock at the bottom there, and I also had noticed that it was sucking air through there, and that was getting air in the system, which is not good for a diesel. So I ended up replacing that, and I also ended up replacing this one here. And then I also did some work with the lines. I ended up finding out that a restriction in the fuel line can actually cause the engine to race, which kind of seems counterintuitive to what you might think, but it actually, what happens is it screws up the internal pressures inside the injector pump, which cause the injector pump to malfunction. So anyways, there's a brand new filter in here, and I think I'll just let the rest of the video that I still have kind of tell the story. Yeah, I was thinking to myself when I was looking at this little petcock deal here that it looked familiar to me. I thought I remembered seeing some somewhere. Sure enough, I went and looked through my little trinkets and stuff I never throw away, and I actually found not one but 2 brand new ones. Same exact style as that. So I should be able to clean up this fitting, this reducing bushing that they go into, put some Teflon tape on it, put it all back together, and save myself a trip to the hardware store, or the auto parts store for that matter. Alrighty. Alright, so I put Teflon tape on the threads and put it all back together, and I think that's going to work out just fine. I make sure I keep the threads on the Teflon tape I don't let them go past the leading edge of what I'm screwing in, just in case a little strand of Teflon tape decides to try and work its way in to this side somewhere and somehow end up in the fuel stream, because that would be bad. Alright, just going to let that drain. I'll just have to keep an eye on it in case there's more than 5 gallons left in that tank. Well, with the tank out, I could sneak a peek at the steering valve, and well, I'm tempted to try and see if I can see how difficult it would be to change that seal on that pump, or that valve I should say. So I'm thinking if I want to take that out, even just to look at that seal, I'd have to plan on dropping this whole unit maybe down. Looks like it unbolts from this bracket right here, and then maybe that would allow it to drop down and disengage from that. But I'm looking at the bottom of this, and I don't like the looks of that at all, because that looks like it's almost touching the top of the transmission over there. So I don't think there's room for that to happen. Well, it's after supper and I'm out here and tank's done draining. Just kind of disheartened by what I see here. There's definitely going to be no easy way to do any of the repairs that I wanted to get done on this thing. As far as, well, I already talked about how that steering valve is in there. If there's a seal on the top of that steering valve that keeps the fluid from migrating up the column and coming out the top of the steering wheel, which is up by the top of the steering wheel, which is what it's doing now, I don't see any way I'm going to be able to get it out without separating the steering column from the dashboard where it's welded. So that means grinding it, I guess. In other disheartening news, you remember the shuttle shift here? Well, one of the early repairs I had done was to put in this little universal joint to take out the slop that was happening there. And that actually was an improvement, but it still really works poorly. And before I took the tank up today, I actually thought that that was due to the fact that they're using one of these almost like adjustable turnbuckle type of deals here, and I figured that seems sloppy down the end there where the bolt goes through. But now that I have this out, I could see this is much more involved than I originally thought it was, the way this mechanism works. Well, back to the matter at hand, the tank. I unscrewed the float bowl assembly from the bottom of the tank, decided to take this hose off, and my hands are black. This hose is really in rough shape, so I'm definitely not going to reuse that hose. So if it looks that bad on the outside, who knows what's happening on the inside. It might be deteriorating on the inside and leaving allowing little bits of black chunks of stuff to break off and get into the fuel stream. I unscrewed this from the tank, and I can see, when I look down in there, I can see what looks like some good sized flakes of something, debris down in there. So I was just going to knock it out. Well, it's not just falling out easily, so I'll see if I get something to pick at it. Also, now that I've drained all of that fuel through this screen, I'm going to pull the screen again and see if I've trapped any new, if there are any signs of any newly trapped garbage from the tank. Oh, I just dropped that sediment bowl. rolled off the tire, hit the ground, and luckily it did not hit any of the rocks down there. I would feel real dumb if I broke that. You can get replacements, but the whole point is, you know, why have to buy something that was perfectly good just because you did something dumb and broke it? Alright, so I'm going to need to get something to pick at that little opening there. Well, I reached down in there and fished out whatever that little blockage was that I thought was a flake of rust, and lo and behold, look what came out. This is a piece of plastic. I have no idea where that came from, but it sure as heck looks like plastic to me. It almost looks like it's got striations in it, like it was some sort of an adhesive tape that was pulled off of a roll